Did you know all the whales in England belong to the king and queen? It's true. As a matter of fact, they've belonged to the sitting monarch since the Middle Ages. It's hard to imagine a law in America that gives the president the right to own all the lobsters off the coast of Maine, but that's basically what they did over in the UK. It may sound strange, but Britain still recognizes the Royal Fish Statute of 1324. That's 700 years of kings and queens owning whales. According to the statute, all whales caught within 3 miles of British shores have to be offered to the king or queen to decide whether they want to keep them. The law also includes sturgeons, and in the 1600s, Judge Matthew Hale even added porpoises to the list. Altogether, whales, sturgeons, and porpoises are known in Britain as royal fish. Now I know what you're thinking, whales and porpoises are mammals, not fish. What can I say? It was the Middle Ages, and the name just stuck. Now, what's the purpose of all this? At the time the law was passed, whaling was still big business all around the world. Whales could be harvested for oil, fat, meat, and bone. They supplied resources for everything from making candles to providing oils for lamps to using bones for corsets. That's right, there were a bunch of proper English ladies walking around London strapped into whale bone corsets. What all of this really translated into, though, was a potential big payday for the crown. As for the sturgeon, well, that's just considered good eating. Sturgeon remains a delicacy of English cuisine. Now, the law was primarily passed to make sure that the royal family got their first pick of any valuable whales that may turn up in British waters, though. Because of a technicality, the law also included beached whales, which means any whale that turns up on British shores also belongs to the king and queen. This is considered such a serious business that there's even an official office for it. Since the Middle Ages, the Receiver of Wreck has been in charge of accepting claims of whales, sturgeon, and porpoises caught in British waters. The receiver's primary job is to investigate shipwrecks and determine salvage rights. But the Crown decided the office would also get into the fish business. So if you're an Englishman and you catch yourself a whale, sturgeon, or porpoise, you have to contact the Receiver of Wreck and make an offer. If the Crown decides that it wants the animal in question, the law gets a little bit stranger. If there's only a sitting king or queen, they get the whole thing. If there's a king and a queen, though, they split it. The king gets the head and the queen gets the tail. The exact reason for this is lost to time, but in the book Moby Dick, Herman Melville repeated a popular British urban legend that the queen gets the tail so she can have corsets made. Here we go again with the corsets. Now, believe it or not, this law is still on the books. It's considered more of a formality today. In a time when the royals want to seem more down to earth, they rarely collect on any royal fish. But still, British fishermen are expected to make at least a symbolic offer to the Receiver of Wreck. The odds are that you won't get into any real legal trouble, but it's a bad look. In 2004, a Welsh fisherman made the news because he sold a 264-pound sturgeon without contacting Buckingham Palace. The Queen pardoned him, but who wants their name in the papers for breaking the law, let alone breaking the law by keeping a 264-pound fish away from the Queen? Now, it seems that the royals have always been pretty lenient about royal fish, and fishermen have usually been pretty good about reporting their catches. The English Heritage Organization reports that they can't find any record of anyone ever actually being punished for failing to report a royal fish. In fact, they can't even find a record of what the punishment would be. Imagine having a law that no one knows the punishment for breaking. Some historians and lawyers think that the law may have been passed for educational reasons, not financial ones. The Receiver of Wreck also passes along statistics about the royal fish to different scientific and academic organizations. This helps them track populations by size, weight, and other characteristics. Now, whales are not the only animals that the Crown owns either. Since the 12th century, they've also claimed ownership of every swan on the River Thames. Swans in other bodies of water around Britain belong to the landowners, but the swans on the Thames are the royal families. Every year, on the 3rd week of July, a ceremony takes place called the Swan Upping, where all of the swans on the Thames are captured, catalogued, tagged, and released into the wild. Like the Receiver of the Wreck, there's even an official office to carry out the ceremony. They're called the Marker of the Swan. Due to a technicality, some of the swans also belong to members of 2 of England's oldest trade guilds, the Worshipful Company of Vintners and the Worshipful Company of Dyers. Those are some crazy names, right? But that is a story for another video. Now, like the royal fish, the whole royal swans thing is more of a formality than an enforced ownership law. Like the royal fish statute, it also serves a scientific purpose in helping keep a swan census. But wait, there is more. Yes, there is one last animal that the British Crown owns, and it's a case of one of these things is not like the other, just because they had to go and make things weird. In addition to whales, porpoises, sturgeon, and swans, the royals also legally own bats. Well, at least the bats at Balmoral Castle. This is the newest addition to the list of royal animals, and it was made by Queen Elizabeth II. Balmoral is located in Scotland. It's been a traditional vacation home for the royal family since Prince Albert bought it as a gift for Queen Victoria in 1852. It's also home to a colony of bats, and those bats are not in the belfry either. They live in the main hall. They're pipistrelle bats, the smallest kind in England. On average, they weigh less than a pound and have a wingspan of less than a foot. Most of them are about the size of a pool ball. And depending on how you feel about animals, they're kinda cute. One of their nicknames in England are flying kittens. And because Britain was declared rabies-free in 1922, you don't have to worry about catching anything from them. Now, when the cleaning staff at Balmoral tried to get rid of them, Queen Elizabeth decreed these were her bats and that they be left alone. The cleaning staff wasn't too happy about this, complaining that they, quote, added to their duties. You can fill in the blanks there with your imagination. It turns out Queen Elizabeth was quite the bat lover. She even used to catch them with a butterfly net to let them out at night. She'd still leave the windows open for them though, in case they decided they wanted to come back. Now, while this may sound like some wacky custom, other countries around the world also have laws saying certain animals belong to the government. Denmark, and in ancient times, the Dukes of Normandy also claimed rights over whales caught in their waters. As a matter of fact, America has its own similar law. Unlike the European laws though, ours is for a more practical purpose. Under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, it's illegal for citizens of the United States to own, obtain, or sell feathers from migratory birds. This covers about 1,000 different species. The act was originally passed in 1918 to protect vulnerable species who were being hunted to extinction for their feathers. Since it was passed, the law has saved the snowy egret, the wood duck, and the sandhill crane, all of which faced extinction. The only exception to the law is for indigenous Americans. This is because the feathers of certain birds, especially owls and eagles, are sacred to several tribes and used in religious ceremonies. Originally, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act didn't take this into account. In the 1960s, members of different tribes were able to lobby to have the act amended. Ever since 1962, there have been procedures in place for indigenous Americans to legally claim certain bird feathers for religious use. So just like whales belong to the king and queen, you could say owls and eagles technically belong to indigenous Americans. But the president still doesn't own all the lobsters in Maine. At least not yet anyway. Thanks for watching Weirdly Legal, and be sure to subscribe for more unbelievably true legal facts.